Principal Mr. Cup, and Miss Christy Milton, she's a math teacher. We have a mobile mind specialist, Robin Luke. And last but certainly not least, TJ Godfrey, another math teacher.
I think I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
I think everybody can hear me. I'm not. I get the luxury of talking about two great teachers that I was able to bring in. When I first got to Rockmore High School, our main focus was math because it was free love. Okay, but we also had another mission: be innovative practices. We've heard a lot of technology, all of that, but technology is just the initial component of what you're trying to accomplish. You start off with technology. You got to have technology first. Then you start talking about words like individualized learning. You start talking about blended learning. But now we're working into a kind of like another stage, and it's called personalized learning. And it's talking about reaching out and grasping the interest of the students, and not necessarily as much for the teachers. And I'm going to tell you in a minute, these two people, they're phenomenal. They make my job as a principal easy. And so, saying that, I'm just going to go ahead and pass it off to Mr. Godfrey. I think he's first. And I promise you these two people are going to impress you, so you better hang on to your socks.
It's time to wake up, people. This one goes out to teachers. Teachers and students. It's time to get our learn on. And we got lots to learn, too. I don't know it all, but I know a few things. Science. You hear? You take up space, you matter. It's just science, man. Don't be a bully. Don't even be a bully to the bullies. It just makes more bullies. We can all be awful sometimes. We can all also be awesome. It's time to be more awesome. And that's what it's time for. History. We got to study it so we don't repeat it. But if history does repeat itself, then I'm going to name my pet dinosaur Reginald. I just hope he doesn't hit me. We can't just study history. We got to make history. And history is made by ordinary people. Ordinary people like you and me. And that guy. The world's greatest thinkers. Confucius, Albert Einstein, Justin Timberlake. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like me. I put my pants on one leg at a time while dancing.
So that's actually a video that we showed in one of our PLC meetings a few months ago, and I love it because, Robbie Novak, that's who the kid is that you're seeing in the video, and he's actually accomplished quite a bit. If you know anything about Robbie Novak, you also know that this kid, at his age, has become a viral sensation on YouTube. His videos became so popular that he was even able to do one of his pep talks with President Obama. They've got like one where President Obama's on the phone and he's talking to kid president, and it's awesome. This kid's like not even 10 and he's already accomplished more than I ever will in my entire life. But it's inspiring because he says, be more awesome, I love that. And what makes this story even more incredible, as you can go to the next slide, is that Robbie also has a bone disorder that makes his bones extremely brittle. So for Robbie, the slightest tumble or stumble can break several bones in his body. It can put him in the hospital for several weeks at a time. But this hasn't slowed him down. To put together a pep talk for teachers, for the board, for all of you, all administrators, to be more awesome. And that's what I want to do in my classroom, is I want to be more awesome in my classroom all the time. And one way that and it's been quite a struggle, because just so you guys know a little bit about my background, I came in the middle of the year. I took over for a teacher in the middle of the year, which is not something that I recommend. It's really, really tough. Trying to change the kids' routine when they're already established with another teacher. You're day-to-day making lesson plans. You have a lot of misses. but you have a few really good hits at the same time. And one thing that I want to show you is a hit that I thought went very well this year in my class. If any of you have ever taught mathematics in high school, you know they emphasize quadratic equations. And some of you may have just kind of threw up a little bit just thinking about when you had to study quadratics when you were in high school. But for me, they're incredible. I love quadratic equations because that's when the mathematics starts to become more applicable in everyday life. And if you go to the next slide, one thing that they push in the high school curriculum is context. So they want students to study mathematics, but in context. They want students to know how to solve a quadratic formula, but related to a real-world problem. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to figure out a way of how we could use the technology that was provided to us to draw a clear connection to mathematics to a real-world problem. And so I started brainstorming with one of my colleagues from the University of Georgia, and I actually had him FaceTime into my classroom. So we had him up on a smart board just like that, and he FaceTimed in on the board and walked my entire class through a demonstration. And they were all able to go through this demonstration on their iPads, and they were able to build and construct a quadratic equation to represent the motion of a space shuttle. And this is the one. If you'll go ahead and play this clip.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Main engine start, 0, and liftoff of the Atlas V with Curiosity, seeking clues to a planetary.
And that's it. That is the entire clip that we need to build a quadratic function, a mathematical equation to model the motion of a space shuttle. I mean, this is a real-life space shuttle. This thing took off in 2011 carrying the Curiosity rover to Mars, which is still there today. And one thing that I tell my kids, I said, have you guys ever seen the movie Armageddon? And they're like, yeah, we've seen that. I said, you know that rover, that big car that they drive around on the asteroids? Yeah. I said, it's kind of like that. And they love it. They absolutely love hearing these stories. But where does the mathematics come in? So when my colleague from the University of Georgia was walking them through this demo, this is what they saw. So go ahead and go to the next slide. They see a ruler, basically, I mean, it's a very, very large ruler, obviously, that they can use to take data points of this, of the motion of this space shuttle. And the space shuttle just goes up, so they just move the slider, and every student was able to take their own data on their iPads. So they go through and they get their data. And then we use a mathematics application called Desmos. If you go to the next slide, and they're able to plot all of their data. So one of the standards, okay, that's covered in this project is building quadratic functions. Well, there's all these contrived examples of building quadratic functions. But in the real world, and if any of you have a science background, you know that the way that you typically build any kind of function is you have a data set, you look at it, you say, hey, that looks like a parabola. So let's tell the program that it's a quadratic, you do a best fit line, and we're able to do every single bit of this on the iPad technology that's provided in the classroom. Now, don't worry about what all these numbers mean. Just know it's really cool. Okay? But the students love this activity so much, seeing the clear connection to the real world scenarios, that I couldn't get them to transition to a new task. I mean, they were so in love with this. They were going to YouTube, they were Googling videos of the Atlas space shuttle, they were looking up articles about what kind of data, what types of experiments the Atlas, or the Curiosity rover has performed. And I was like, guys, okay, that's great, I'm glad you're excited, but we need to move on to new topics. But it was so much fun to see them finally get excited about mathematics. And that's my #1 goal, to make mathematics more awesome, just like Robbie Novak said. So, thank you very much.
My name is Christy Milton, and I teach advanced algebra at Walmart High. One thing, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I come from a pre-K background, actually, with the little 4- and 5-year-olds running around all day. And I've had the pleasure to jump into high school, and it has just been awesome. But one thing that I really struggled with this year was the question, why do we have to learn this, Miss Milton? Miss Milton, why? Why? Tell me. Why do I have to learn this? And instead of giving them the formal answer of, okay, by Georgia guidelines, this is what you have to learn, this is what I am required to teach you, I have decided to set forth in January on a mission to try to explore a better option for these kids. You can go to the next slide. I started to realize I had many kids that were bored, tired, frustrated, struggling, and really most anything, they were curious about why we had to learn this. And I realized that I had over 80% of my kids that were struggling and on this level. So I realized that I had to do something to have some type of different approach of learning for these kids. So you can go to the next slide. So with that being said, I decided to come up with a way to spark their interest. What could I do? So I kind of started to do some research on my own, and I said, okay, student-directed learning, that sounds pretty good, but what could I do? So I started to do more research, and I saw the iPad and things with technology start to pop up. And I said, okay, from now on, I'm going to really, really try this iPad business. I'm going to really make these kids try to see if they can use this iPad. So a project that I wanted to share with you was about, I did one on exponential growth and decay. And I had my kids actually compute the growth, the decay of a car, the depreciation. What they actually had to, like if they were to go out and purchase a car. Is it better to buy a used car or is it better to buy a new car? And then I had kids going, oh, I really like this car. It's like $100,000, Miss Milton. Is that a great choice? And I'm like, are you sure that you want to buy that car? You know, how much is it going to depreciate when you drive it off the lot? So I had them actually looking it up, exploring with that iPad and trying to find what is the best choice for them. And then when I realized and I looked across my classroom, every kid was stuck at their iPad, trying to really find out, okay, this is how this math relates to real life. This is why this math is important. And I found myself, that was my answer for the year. I was like, wow. And from that day forth, we've done credit card projects and different things like that, and the kids absolutely love it. And I said, next year, that will be my way for next year, total iPad. Also, this right here was one of the examples from one of my kids that he sent in. And he actually used his iPad for the entire project. This was only one page, but he actually created this in pages. And he put the car, and then it had the actual price that he paid, the depreciation, and then he actually graphed it using the Desmos app, just like what Mr. Godfrey had. And you can actually graph it, see the decay, so you can actually get a visual of the mathematics as well. So, thank you.
Jeez.